Hi, Tara.
Hey Beth, how are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. I'm Beth Gantz. I'm one of the small business coaches at the SBDC at Lorain County Community College, and we help you accelerate your business growth. And I'm excited about this topic today. I'm joined by Tara Tonsetic, who's an event consultant. And Tara, we hardly ever talk to our clients about revenue streams outside of like the products or services they offer. But a few months ago, you and I were in discussion and you were like, well, what about, doing stuff around helping your clients understand how to monetize events? I'm like, okay, brilliant. And we actually had some clients who were like, had an open house coming up. We're interested in how to get in gift guides and stuff like that for the upcoming holiday season. So I wanted to talk to you today on this Let's Chat about doing events for your product or service-based business, your retail store, or, you can do those with service-based business as well. And just kind of get, some, high level overview about how people would want to, how they could do this. So, but introduce yourself, tell everyone about you and your background.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Tara Tonsetic. I am an event consultant, and I have been doing events in the Cleveland area for over 22 years now. Um, I've done everything from doing a social event for 10 people to planning a trade show for 10,000 plus people, and kind of really everything in between. Handled logistics, all of the important details, have also done a ton of strategic partnerships, raising funds, raising dollars for those corporate events as well as those nonprofit fundraisers. So, really have worked with a lot of for profit and nonprofit, and really feel like I have a good sense to be able to help the small business market and help them kind of look at, what they're doing in business and how they can do an event and what that looks like and what does it look like to bring an event into their business and to additional revenue streams. So I'm happy to share some tips and tricks today, and hopefully it'll help them kind of propel them to think in a different direction and maybe something they would, do for their own business.
Definitely. No, I'm excited. So when you think of, like, okay, I have this store or whatever, I want to do an event. Where do I start? Like, what do I do? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like next week I throw an event, right?
Right. So,
But
I guess depending on the event, sometimes I work on an event for a year in advance. Sometimes it's 6 months. If something is smaller in scale, a few month lead time would be ideal. But if someone's like, hey, like I, want to throw this workshop together or, do a quick pop up of something, things can be done in weeks time, but you always have to think like with the mindset that like the longer you're kind of working on it, the better it'll be logistically and as well as just getting it out and promoting it. Um, I guess the first thing though, kind of be if someone is wanting to do an event, they're kind of like, well, where do I get started? I think they really need to have a clear objective of like their why. Like I think your why is like the biggest thing. It's like what's your why in business? Who is someone's like ideal client avatar? It's the same thing when you're doing an event. Like, is it the same? Is it the same target? Is it going to be a wider audience or is it going to be a smaller audience? So I really think like defining what they want to do for the event. What is their why for starting it? And making sure that that they have like measurable goals for that and that they're pretty specific on what they want for their outcome.
yeah, and like, you might have several customer segments, but not each of those customer segments would even care about this event you're doing, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, so you really have to know, as we always say, know your customer.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah.
again, those objectives may be for certain customer segments, right? And you want to target certain
Absolutely.
customer segments. So,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. And so, events aren't cheap and stuff like that.
Nope.
And sometimes we just go, oh, I'll make the money at the event, so I don't care how much I spend or something like that. But I mean, that's not realistic, really. Like, I know you mentioned something about making sure you create budgets and stuff like that. And I think that's a really
Yes.
important point because
Yes.
it's easy just to like, go out and buy this and then buy, or like, oh, I have the space, so it's not going to be that expensive, but that doesn't mean it won't be.
Right. I mean, you have to think down to really creating a solid budget that's pretty detailed because you want to have, what your budget is versus your actuals and what you're actually spending and like what your profit's going to be. I mean, you may have a space, but then, like you said, you have to account for, is this, say, a workshop? Do you have handouts? Do you have stuff tangible you're giving? Food and beverage always is a big spend in events. So, like, what does that look like? Is it an all day conference where you're going to have to be providing breakfast snacks, lunch snacks, possibly dinner or drinks? So, it's it's really, um, making sure that you're hitting all of those areas, and that you're realistic. Um, and there's different things out there that are helpful to help kind of define, like, what your spend is and helping you to keep track financially.
Yeah. Okay. And then, you have to market the event and you have to why you're different. And, what if
Yes.
someone in the same space is doing something similar? I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
is that a
I think it
bad
happens
thing
all.
to do a similar event?
Yeah, I think so. I think it happens all the time. It's like how many people out there are selling jewelry, or how many people out there are offering some type of coaching service. There's a lot out there, but I really think what defines people in business and what would define you in your event would be like what is your secret sauce? What makes you stand apart from others? What do you have? What do you offer that others can't? I mean, first of all, you have you yourself, and what can you bring to the table? And that's always, I think, a good distinction and selling point. And it's you're different. What are you offering? And I think that in and of itself is huge. But then what can you do to kind of stand apart from the others doing similar things in your space?
Yeah. And when you're marketing the events, I know that you obviously want to go after the customer that, you've targeted, but you may attract people who've never heard about you to your event.
Absolutely.
And so how far, obviously, if you're planning an event next week, that's not very far out, but like,
Yeah.
how far out should you start marketing? And do you do like a save the date? Do people like that? Is that helpful to people? I mean, or do you find maybe platforms you're not really marketing on? Or, I think people get sometimes caught up in like, okay, I have this social media plan. I mean, most of us don't, but they don't want to bombard their customers with more posts, but this is completely
Sure.
different.
Yeah, I think if you're already established business and you're already, utilizing, say, social is a big part of your marketing push. I think it's just peppering in the event. So for, say, I recently worked with a client and had worked with them about 6 months out from a big event. We started marketing, messaging with saving the date. This is coming out. Registration's opening soon. So you're kind of teasing that so people can get that on their calendar. And from there, we had about 8 to 9 targeted messages that went out through social, that went out through email marketing, that were pretty strategic in what we were trying to tell the audience. Who are the speakers coming? What are you going to get out of this? Why should you come? Various things like that. So I think regardless of how many weeks you have, you need to be strategic in your planning, and hopefully the more time you have, the better. But I think peppering in the event with what you have already kind of planned out on social. So and maybe even looking at that and being like, okay, I normally post 4 times a week, and now it's going to be 6 times. Like, where can I pull back? And maybe bringing that, I guess, event to the front of the mix, and the focus is on that for a while, where you might not need to talk about something that isn't as attractive or doesn't really affect the bottom line. So I think you kind of have to kind of work the balance with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
creating a marketing strategy is super important.
Yeah. One thing that I think is so important with events and that I am in awe of how you do this. Full disclosure, I've planned events with Tara before. I've known Tara a long time and watched her plan events, but you are amazing at partnerships and building those partnerships and, understanding how to reach out and get sponsorships. And so I think, people forget that part when doing events. They don't necessarily think of maybe the caterer as being a partner, right? Or the
Absolutely.
place you're getting your, little gift bags as a partner, or that they could possibly get sponsors for their event. So can you speak more of the importance of that, and how to build
Sure.
those relationships?
Yeah, I really think that is like the key to any event. That is like that and details. Those are like the heart of any event for me. That's where I put a lot of attention when I'm planning an event. Um, Partnerships are huge. So I always tell clients, look at your pool of contacts. Yes, you might have somebody that owns a space that you might be able to rent space from. Somebody else might be, really good at making that's a calligrapher, and they can make name tags and just different things like that. So I would say look at your pool of people and who you know and how your mission could strategically align with their mission, and what can you give them that would be great for their business and then in return would work for your event. So that's kind of where I start. And then I just think outside the box. I did an event this past September for a client, had worked on the event for almost a year. They had some sponsors last year, but I really helped them push their sponsors this year, both monetary, so dollars coming in, as well as in kind sponsorships. I think people kind of forget about that in-kind component. So I ended up getting giveaways and snacks and drinks and all kinds of stuff in kind that would appeal to this target audience that was helping me with my bottom line. And then I went after those sponsors that gave us money to kind of make sense, to say, okay, this is who they're targeting. Our target audiences meet. Can I help them grow their business? We had a software company come in that was launching a new product specifically for our target demo. There's 275 perfect ideal client avatars sitting in the room. It was a no-brainer. Like, they came in, they paid the monetary sponsors, they were and it kind of worked for everybody. So um if you're planning an event for, I don't know, you have a baby focused product, you might not necessarily go to a hotel or a car dealership. But if something makes sense to you, all people can say is no. Like, you reach out, you try, I'm not interested. You move on to the next person. I think developing a sponsorship package, which you're handing to these folks, and really thinking about what deliverables you're giving these people is huge. Like, what is going to benefit them? Is it standing on stage for 15 minutes or 10 minutes to talk about their product or service? Is it exposure on your social outlets because you have a high reach? Is it, an ad in a print magazine? Is it stuffing something in a goodie bag? Whatever those are, importance to making sure those are all delivered on, and that you're delivering and making sure all of those are taken care of. But what makes sense to your partner? And sometimes it's sitting down brainstorming with them. Like, what can I do for you? Like, here's a base, but like, let's customize this. Make sure that everything that you do can be customizable. So you can tailor it to that specific partner.
That's great advice, because you may even have a friend with another business, but if they don't have the same customer base as you, it's there's no point partnering with them, right? Like, you need to
Right.
go after people who are attracting the same type of people you are, or it's a mutual, it can be beneficial for both of you somehow.
Absolutely. Yep. It's
Yeah,
a win-win for both. Yep.
yeah. And it's hard to make those asks, but
It
you
is.
just, you just have to, right? Like,
I
the
mean,
worst they'll say is
look,
no. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look at the event you and I did many moons ago. Like, we reached out and got Etsy to come. Like,
I
we were like way ahead of the curve. And
I
like, right? And they
they're
came and
like,
they were there. They had a presence. Yeah.
I think you and I both looked at each other like, well, okay then, who's picking them up at the
Oh,
airport, right?
yeah.
Like,
Well, what is happening? And you know
what is
what? They could
happening?
have very
That's
well
okay. Let's do this.
they
Yeah,
could
that
have
was
very
fun.
well said no, but they said yes. And it's like, okay,
Right.
great. You never know. You never know unless you ask. And like, the worst
Yeah,
someone can say is no, I'm not interested. And
yeah,
you move on.
yeah.
Yep.
And then I want to touch real quick on revenue streams. So people,
Yes.
like, there's the ticket sales, and then there's like the other stuff that
Yes.
go along with the event, and those are all revenue streams, right? And so you can
Absolutely.
each have goals around
Yep.
those too.
Yes, absolutely. You've got the ticket revenue, you've got sponsorships, you could do add-ons. The client I worked with in September, we were going to add like a VIP event, but they ended up not wanting to do it. But I mean, that was another element where, there were 50 seats available for the, 300 people that were attending, first come, first serve. They got to the idea was for them to mix and mingle, ask questions with the owners, and really have that kind of upfront and personal contact with them, and that kind of one-on-one time in a smaller setting. And that would have been another revenue stream. So again, thinking outside the box. Yes, you have tickets. Now you have sponsorships. Can you add another component? Is there something that you can offer product wise that you're selling? Is there something you can offer service based that you're selling? Maybe it's once they've come to this event, it's a follow up workshop or seminar virtually that you're doing. If they sign up on site, it's a special price for them. So just really thinking about everything around, and how you could just not just have ticket sales. You have all these other things layered.
Yeah, which leads me to my last discussion point, I guess, is about
Yes.
what do you do after the event, right? These people have come or they've done
Yep.
something like a virtual online workshop with you or something. What do you do afterwards? How are you,
Yeah.
it's not like, okay, thanks for coming. Like,
Right. And then they drop off, right?
right,
No, you want to foster that person. If you only have an annual event, you want to have touch points with those people throughout the year. You want to be able to send them emails. I'm a huge proponent of personal touches and details. I love handwriting letters. So I personally, even if I had 50 or 60 people attending, I would handwrite a thank you little note on my branded stationery, thanking them for coming. I mean, if someone were to get that in the mail for going to an online course, they would be like, wow, that's really great. That's really impressive. So I think making those little touches throughout the year and putting those into your marketing efforts is huge because it's like an ask with a sponsor. You want to cultivate those sponsorships and those strategic partnerships throughout the year. Because if you go to someone and they give you $5 or $10,000 for an event and you have no contact with them and you go back to them at the next year and you're like, hey, would you like to be a part of this again? They may or may not, but if you touch base with them, if you check in with them, if you send them notes, if you send them thank yous, if you reach out via phone, if you're local to them, you meet for a cup of coffee, whatever the case may be, you have to build those relationships like you do with anything else. Same thing with your partnerships, and same thing with your clients, and those attendees coming to your events. You need to build marketing and touch points around keeping in contact with them.
no.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else we should know about, monetizing an event for our business? Well, I guess can you do too many different things? Or, I mean, everything's like even a sale is an event. Like if you had a retail
Yeah.
store or something, it's, I
Right.
guess, some sort of event, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you have like the different point of sale things, right? Like on your counter, if you're adding something on, if you're asking them, do you want this wrapped? Is this a gift? And you put it in a pretty bag with pretty paper and a bow. I mean, it's an experience, it's an event. I think if you've never done an event and you're just starting out, start with one and figure out your who you're targeting, figuring out your why, and then seeing what makes the most sense. I mean, I think out the gate, if you've never done an event and you're like, I'm going to put on a conference and I want 1,000 people to come, that's a big push. So, and it's a big ask. So I would say start small, get your feet wet. Maybe it's a workshop, maybe it's an online seminar, maybe it's something you own a shop, a retail shop, maybe it's something in your shop, or maybe you're partnering with another business to try to do something jointly and kind of get your feet wet. And then from there, really learn about these things, making sure that you're in a good position, that you don't want to lose money, and sometimes out the gate you're breaking even, but it's that marketing push and it's that brand exposure. But I think being smart, being strategic is the key.
well, thank you so much for these great tips. And as always, the SBDC is here to help you, grow and your business in a variety of ways. So if you need help understanding how to monetize events for your business, please reach out to the SBDC. And Tara, I look forward to chatting again on other topics. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having